Welcome to IBL. What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Thriller here, and we are here for another Power Rankings video. We are here for the IBL Season 11 Power Rankings. Now, this IBL is run by my good pal Rose Ray God, aka Rose. He's run it the last two, three. This is the third season he's running it, I believe. Could be the second one. I could be completely wrong. But this was the league that Rose took over from Brendan, aka Dark 26. Our good, my other really good friend, who was the main runner of IBL for the last 9, 10 seasons of it. And Brendan has decided to give the reins to Rose because Rose obviously wanted to have his own draft league, so he can have a draft league he can play in every once in a while because he wanted to. And this is a pretty decently good stacked season. We have some really good coaches from across the board here, and we have some really cool teams here. But with that being said, if you guys are excited, leave a like if you haven't already, subscribe if you're new, join the crew crew as you've been drilling with the King of the Crew. And with that being said, I'm also going to be dropping down the channels of everyone that's participating this season of the IBL, so definitely go check them out. And before anyone asks, I will sadly not be doing pick'ems this season because of the fact that I will be doing team building help with some of my friends during the season. And I think since there's only 12 coaches, which is a spoiler here, there's going to be roughly three matchups we talk each week since it's 6 versus 6, but it's basically three, or I guess it would have been four maybe at most. But again, about half of them I couldn't really put my thoughts into because I would be helping my friends in. So no point in really doing pickups. And plus, I didn't really feel like doing pickups. Now, I did spend the last roughly hour and 15 minutes to go through these teams, power rank them, talk them out for myself, and then go over with that. But I've done my job, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. Every TAM team here is a really good team. There was no real bad team. There was only maybe one team I had questions about. But other than that, I'm going to tell you right now, the lowest score I gave was an 8. That was the lowest score I've ever given in any power rankings I've ever done was an 8. So that just tells you that we've got some stacked teams this season. So to really quick go over the IBL season this time around, it is going to be based doing the battles at level 100 here with standard points. Obviously, there's going to be a whole idea with the idea of timers and stuff like that, standard smoke clauses, obviously dry pass only, and stuff like that. The main rules of Terra is going to be 30 points to spend on 2 to 3 Terra captains. And as you can tell by the tiers here, we do have a Terra cost here, which does apply to your total toss. So, for example, a Braviary that is 6 points is also Terra at 6 points. A Belly Bolt that's Terra is regular at 7 now actually costs you 8 in your total cost because of the Terra captain. To give you guys an example. So, let's talk about these teams real quick. First, let's go over the coaches, and then we're going to talk about the teams as we go on. And this also is not the draft order, just so you know, except this is not the draft order. So don't assume this was how the picks were made. The first coach we have is Shadow Gallade, my good friend Shadow, who also is portrayed as my father in the Shadow Gallade lore, which eventually Shadow will make a video on that. Definitely go check it out when you do. Shadow's a really good friend of mine. He is a former IBL champion from 2 seasons ago, I think. So Shadow, unless he didn't defend his title last season, I don't know. So Shadow's coming back to defend the title. It looks like potentially. We have JB, who I believe did participate in IBL last season. I don't know if he finished his season, but JB, fantastic player of these Atlantic Cities and Shadows, Caroline Torres Hills. But Jay is honestly a great human being. He's got a great smile. He's got a great charisma, great aura around him. And he's just overall a great guy. I think Jay's fantastic. He's definitely a great school validator. He hasn't been able to get onto his mojo a little bit because of the fact that he's been taking a break from YouTube, obviously focused on his personal life and probably school and everything, which is totally fair, obviously. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how Jay kind of comes back into the full swing of things, and hopefully he's shaking off the rust enough to really come back and win a championship this time around. Of course, you can't have a league without Mr. 25 leagues at once, it feels like. He's trying to go after zombies now record here. But we got the Vancouver Tank Tangs, coached by Gravy, commissioner of PBL. I'm trying to remember if a commissioner of PBA, I believe also was another league that he was in that he owns. There might be another one. But Gray is a fantastic battler. He has very questionable nicknames, but you know what? People make memes out of it, so it's very fine. And also a massive shout outs to Gray's fiance slash another amazing draft league coach in Ellie, who actually drafted Gray's team. And I also think Gray made some changes himself to the team afterwards. But I think pretty much for the start of the draft, Ellie drafted the majority of things here. And you can kind of tell Ellie drafted by the fact that some Pokemon you might have noticed that she's drafted before, but something that maybe Gray hasn't. But Gray is a multi-time Wi-Fi champion. He is the undefeated BBR champion as of right now. He hasn't defended his BBR title yet, which is insane that he has the bragging rights to say he's the undefeated BBR champion as of right now because he's won 3 seasons in a row or 3 seasons in total, and he has never lost a season he's done BBR. So, gonna be interesting to see how Gray does this season in IBL and making his return and unretiring from the draft league scene is going to be Brendan, aka Dark Double 26 of your Vegas Golden Corviknights. Now, Brendan is an accomplished draft league player. He has made the playoffs a lot of times. He has made only one or two semifinal appearances and has only made one finals appearance. But do not let that distract you that Brendan is a very skilled player. Now, Brendan has been primarily focused on VGC after since his retirement, so definitely going to give him a little bit of a shaking of the rust here to help him. But I am going to be in his front office along with a fellow little friends such as Kiwi, Sandy, Cameron, just to name a couple of people. And we are going to do our absolute best to bring Brendan home his first Wi-Fi championship. And I think arguably his first championship ever. So I'm really hoping we do well with Brendan here. And Brendan drafted a pretty solid team that I'm really excited for you guys to check out. Up next, we got Colin in the San Antonio Espers. Colin making his full-fledged YouTube debut. Now, obviously, if some people have seen Colin's channel, which there's a very small portion of you that have, but if there is someone that you saw, he obviously Colin uses his phone slash kind of Elgato of sorts to work around or whatever Elgato we had, like with OBS, to kind of do uploads, which wasn't really good quality. But now he's gotten an Elgato. He's now learned how to be able to do this thanks to Rose. So Colin is now making his grand debut, and this is going to actually give Colin a good chance here because going over the schedule, Colin does have a pretty stacked schedule that's going to give him the best opportunities to get his name out there. And Colin's been waiting for an opportunity, something like this as well. And Colin is a former IBL coach from many seasons ago. I think the first 2 to 3 seasons, Colin has actually was competing in the IBL with Brendan and stuff. So it's pretty cool to see a full circle moment for Colin. So Colin, though, he's definitely going to be probably one of your top three, if not top five, best players in this league, just based off what I've seen from his skill set. So he's definitely going to have be some tough competition, but he's also got tough competition to take on. Also, we've got Mario B on the Montebello Mexica. I think that's how you say it. That's a really weird name, but I respect it. We have Mario here. Mario's a pretty funny guy, pretty chill, very good battler. I actually had the pleasure of battling Mario before, and I actually could have beaten him if I didn't mess up something. So Mario is a very skilled player. Definitely, he's running the ICP. He's helped running the ICP right now, which is the lower tier league that are doing right now. That you've seen 6 Foot Hacks and a few other coaches play right now. So Mario's dipping his toes back into IBL. I still remember the time him and Brendan played at 3 in the morning, and Brendan walked away with a victory. So let's see if Mario can come back here and try to win IBL this time around. Mario definitely is a really skilled player. He's played some against the best, and he's beaten some of the best, so definitely going to be a tough one. Up next, we have the Old English Ice Cubes with Kurt Bilbo. I believe that's his name. I've actually had the pleasure of facing Kurt Bilbo, and unfortunately, we had a little bit of a rocky conversations. But Kurt overall is a fantastic player. He definitely knows exactly what he's doing. And plus, look at that proper gentleman right there, the dapper with the hat and the pot, the tea. Cheerio. I'm sorry, I'm being totally being sick. I'm really sorry. I'm really not trying to be rude or anything, but still, Kurt though, really good player. Definitely going to be definitely a one to look out for here. Up next, we have the Bundle Montreal, coached by Mr. TJP. That Delibird looks like, I shouldn't say that. But also, TJP is a very accomplished player. You've seen him in leagues such as the WPF and some probably other few ones I haven't seen. I have not really watched a decent amount of these players, so I do apologize. And I don't, hopefully, no one takes offense to that. It's just that maybe I don't see your content, or maybe I just don't watch it because it doesn't interest me enough. But they are accomplished coaches that have played some of the bigger leagues, so TJP definitely going to be trying his best to win with his boy Iron Bundle. Up next, we have I have no idea the hell you're supposed to say your name. Stickippy? Stiff Giffy. I don't know how you spell your name. I'm sorry, but we have a Steel City Surge and another coach that I honestly have no clue about. So he's definitely going to be probably the wild card here because I think out of everyone here, he is the one I don't know at all. First of all, and second of all, I think he's one of the more like not I wouldn't say lesser known names because that's just a disrespectful thing to say. He's more of the like not common names you've seen or heard in draft league. So I definitely think the fact that he's going to be going to this as a complete like under the radar, like no one knows his skills, his levels, and stuff like that. I definitely think he's going to take that advantage and try his best to win this season, and definitely try his best to win the league. Up next, making his grand return once again is the Tennessee Gaming Titans coach by Lamar, a really good friend of mine that we are the fellow Gaming Titans and he's going to be representing the Gaming Titans here with the Gaming Titans. Lamar is a very skilled player. I don't think a lot of people give Lamar credit for his battling skills. Lamar is a former champion of the TBL Summer League that you guys have maybe heard about. It's a league that Addison won before, and this is the same one that Lamar has won. Lamar is a very skilled and accomplished player. I think some people don't give Lamar enough credit for how good of a battler he really is. I think he's fantastic. He had a very amazingly good season in SDA just recently, not too long ago. Well, maybe a lot that like months ago. But overall, Lamar, very talented battler. Definitely doesn't battle as much as he would like to, or how he was able to used to. But obviously, life comes a long way, and obviously, Lamar's going to make some time to play in the IBL, and he's got some really cool matches coming up this season, which I'm really excited for him to do. And it's very interesting to see how these things go. Also, coming in here is someone that I have not seen play in a very long ass time. I've seen him play once or twice, but not like crazy, which is no disrespect to him, obviously. And he's a good friend of our fellow sensei of the Wi Fi community. And next this is Davion. I believe it's Davion D double DW or D double DW. I don't remember what his YouTube name is, but Davion here in the Vegas Golden D Knights. And Davion is, from what I remembered, is a actually well-seasoned pro. Is definitely a very good player in the draft league community, and has always helped people like Nexus with his builds, which tells you that's good of a good skill set and the trust that Nexus has in Davion's opinions, his mocks, and stuff like that. He helps them with. So Davion definitely going to be one of the big threats here. So definitely gonna be on the lookout there. And of course, we can't have a league without the commissioner himself in the Las Vegas Rotoms. You never know, Kenny is trash. But anyone say anything? I don't know what it is, but but Rose though definitely a good player. I definitely think sometimes Rose gets in his head a little bit and overthinks a lot. But if you really look at how Rose has played in some of his recent leagues, especially in WBF, he has gotten so much better. I'm seeing such great improvement in his battling. If he keeps that confidence and just keeps his head in the game, he's definitely going to be a big threat here, especially with the team he drafted, which is quite scary. I'm not going to lie. Kind of glad I don't have to face this team. But with that, that is the introductions out of the way. It's time to talk about the rankings. So, I want you guys to know when we went into these rankings, I really dove deep into this one and I really thought through a lot of these teams because I want you all to know about six teams. Wait, six teams tied for one spot. Six teams. So it went through a lot to go back and forth on what team I should roll with. It's this one, that and this and that, and just it was a lot to go through. But with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the rankings right here and right now. Coming in at number 12 on my list. Now, again, before I reveal the number 12, this is a personal opinion. This is how I view the team. You can prove me wrong, go undefeated, win the league, and I'll look like a fool. I don't mind that. Prove me wrong. I love to be proven wrong. It just means you're much more better and know what you're doing than I thought at first glance. So with that being said, let's reveal number 12. Who is going to be? Who is going to be the Bundle Montreal and their coach, Mr. TJP. Now, I really didn't want to rank TVP's team here because I do think it seems quite interesting. It's just that when we get into it, you're going to kind of understand why I ranked it as low as I did. Like I said, the lowest ranking was an 8 out of 10, which tells you that right now TJ's team is not great, but let's go ahead and just talk about TJ's team. So, TJ's team is going to be Iron Bundle, Valerian Slowking, Gouging Fire, Dundozo, Terra Fortress, Horform, Indeedee, male, but I guess he also has female, which I guess is a thing. Halucha, Cryogonal Witch Quintera, Torterra. That was a funny segue. Hoop Unbound Witch Quintera, that's three Terras in a row, and Ampharos. Now, I like what Iron Bundle pairs with Cloaking with the Chili Reception option. I like that really well. I also like the fact that we can get some momentum into things like Gouging Fire or Terra Hoopa with the Chili Reception. I really like that. I think the defensive pieces of Florges, Dondozo, and Earthworm is disgusting. It is really gross. Some of the offensive wall breaking power we have on this team with being Hoop Unbound, Gouging Fire, some of the special wall breaking we have with arguably some stuff like Cryogon, which is not the greatest special wall breaker, but it's decent. But things also like Iron Bundle. We also have some really good setup threats with Gouging Fire, Florges, Halucha. Some really good aspects of this team. Where this team fell off for me personally, and what I think made it the team that I did not like, was Halusha as a defogger. I don't think is good unless you're really worried about the Goldingo matchups. You're not really running that. And Cryogonal, let's be honest, really doesn't want to run Rapid Spin a lot of the times. And in fact, if you're forcing yourself to run Rapid Spin, you really are limiting your coverage options and limiting your usage for a matchup with Cryogonal, which can be a decently good offensive threat. And there can be a lot of cool sets you can run with Cryo, but I just don't think you really fit Rapid Spin a lot. Also, the fact that you're only stealth rock, you have two stealth rockers and one spiker. That's really it. Torterra realistically does not want to be stealth rock unless you're running defensive Torterra. And then Earthworm, let's be honest, if you're running two spikes and you're running nothing else, it's going to be thing. Obviously, Chantel being banned. That's why Earthworm is 4 points. I just and again, the momentum on this team is also decent. Like we have flip turn, we have chili reception, we have a U turn, but and Volt Switch, but I just don't really see where all this comes together. Like there's separate modes between the Indeedee with obviously Hoopa Unbound and Halucha for Unburdened and also terrain support for Hoopa. But again, it's just I I'm not seeing the vision. Like the defensive synergy between Dondozo to Earthworm is really great, but I don't see where all these mesh together. Like I feel like Gaijin Fire feels a little random on this team. I feel like the Hoop Unbound, even though it fits within DD, I also think it's kind of just placed there. The Ampharos really doesn't make sense to me. The Dondozo fits a little bit, but nothing really too much. Like I just felt like there was a lot of pieces that didn't mesh together. I like the fact you can go in a different mode each week and you kind of can be a little more creative with your draft. But when the draft, in my opinion, doesn't really add up together from some people's perspective, I think it makes it a little more harder to bring a team of six each week. Now, I can give a little bit of credit that it can force a little bit of confusion on the prep from your opponent. So I do think I have to give TJP that credit of that. But overall, I just don't see a good vision for this draft, in my opinion, which is why I ranked it as an 8. Like I said, I don't hate the draft, but there's some valid criticisms here that I think makes this draft a little bit more weaker than most of the other drafts. And that's all I will say about that. Coming in at number 11 is going to be Stiff Kippy. I'm gonna butcher this name every time I say it, so I'm gonna call you Steel City. There we go. We got Steel City here, and their team is Paladin, Iron Treads, Terra, Torn T, which I'm very surprised that lasted till round 3. That is a shocker of a pick I've ever seen one. Massive value of steel right there. You have Hydrapple, Hatterene, Rotom Heat, Terragujo, which is going to be a very interesting choice here, which we'll talk about. Casino Quillfish, Ridge Steel, and Hariyama. Now, I want you all to know from 11 all the way to 8, tied with 8.5 out of 10 rankings. And this was really difficult to binge. What I basically did is how I broke tiebreakers is I matched the teams with the other players, and I did like a win loss record. The more losses one team had, the lower they will rank. But the more wins they had, the more higher they were placed in the ranks. So I went with Steel City as the 11th one because of the four 8.5 teams, it, in my opinion, was the least valued ones. Now let's talk about the good positives of this team. I think you get Palathin. He's fantastic. Palathin plus Torrenti is a fantastic duo from an offensive standpoint. He is insanely good. They're both great pivots as well in these matchups as well. Following the good pivoting options, up Iron Tread plus Rotom Heat, which is really great. Also, you have really good defensive synergy with things like Hydra, Guja, Quillfish, Registeel, Hariyama to an extent, and even had a range. Just really good defensive synergy here. Then You got some good offensive pieces. Oh, excuse me. You guys may not notice, but you can see right there. It's 3:30 a.m. I'm actually doing this right now, so I can sleep later. So pushing to get these power rankings out for the IBL fans and for the coaches because I know they really want to see it. I know in particular one person really wants to see it. But overall, I think there's some really good special ball breakers here. I think it's really good special utility, great utility options. Where this team kind of fell off compared to all the other teams for me. Iron Treads is your only removal, which is fine because Treads is one of the best three removal options in the entire game. Hatterene is actually a good, reliable option with magic guns, which I do think is very fair of enough removal option. Where this team fell off is that for me, it feels more defensive, which isn't a terrible thing, but I personally don't like the version of this defensive. Like, I do think Terra Gudra is going to be very interesting here because I do think there are some weeks you can fit a defensive Terra matchup for Gudra because Gudra does have some pretty good abilities that can take advantage of Terra. But more likely, you're running Terra on your Torn team most weeks, anyways, unless you find the option to not want to bring Terra on Torn team, which would be crazy. Excuse me. It's crazy enough to not think about that. I think Hydropple not being Terra is another big nitpick I have with this draft. Now, I know that's a stupid nitpick to call out because it shouldn't be a thing that factors in. But Hydropple, I've tried to use this thing without Terra, and I'm going to tell you right now, it is ass without Terra. I think with Terra, Hydropple has a lot of great utility, has a lot of great offensive synergy, and has great defensive synergy with a lot of things on this team. So, Gert, if you're watching this, if there's some way you can, oh, actually, there's no way you can get it because you're going to be out of points. Never mind. I just think I just think Hydropple is just not it's not good without Terra. So if you're trapping without Terra, you got to be very confident with you. But if you also think about it, besides that, he only had Levitate Pokemon as his ground switch in, which another big thing about Gert's team. Look at ground types and look at Excadrill. Excadrill smokes this draft, hands down. I know Shadow was watching this. Shadow, you're welcome for the tidbit. But but just looking at this looking at this team, I just don't see the vision. I don't see where things momentum run with each other really do well. I don't really see where we have any offense. Like this team again, for me, relies heavily more in the defensive side of things. There's only like from my point of view, two main breakers for this team, which is Elephant and Therian. Like, don't get me wrong, Treads can be offensive good breaker. Hydropple could be a great specs user under Tricker with Hatterene where he can be good. Guja can be a good breaker as well, potentially. Hariyama can be a good breaker with Belly Drum or even Bulk Up. I just don't think things match well, and things get taunted down very easily here. And another thing, too, about this team is like you look at the hazards. You only have two stealth rockers, which both relatively do it, but they're both steel types, which is another big issue here. Why do we have two steel types on this team? It does not make any sense to me. And also, Spikes on Quillfish, which isn't terrible, is not the most reliant thing ever because again, Quillfish can kind of get shut down pretty damn easily here. And overall, I just don't see where everything meshes together in my opinion. Again, I feel like this team just lays too much defensive for me. But again, it's a personal opinion. Obviously, Steel City have an idea of what they were going with. It'll be interesting to see how they do this season. With that, coming up as the number 10th ranked coach. And number 10 actually was 8 through 8, 9, and 10. All three of them were very close. But I think this number 10 coach ended up just barely in those matchups between the other two, not matching up enough, in my opinion, to the other two teams. So for me, at number 10, it is going to be Davion and the Vegas Golden D Knights. So Davion's team, funny enough, beforehand had like 4 or 5 grass types and still has 3 grass types. Let's talk about it. We have Terrazabru, Deoxys Speed, Ogerpon Cornerstone, Sneasler, Tinkaton, Milotic, Donphan, Abomasnow, Rotom with Terra, and Noctowl with Terra. This team is pretty good offensively, dude. Like the first 4 picks, I think, are fantastic offensive wall breakers. Like you have a win condition with any one of those 4 every single week, and the rest of the team just plays good support, which I think is really fantastic here. Deoxys Speed is a really good utility Pokemon with hazards that you can really run. Ogre Pawn Corson is a relatively decent spiker for the team, which I think is really great. Sneezer, fantastic physical wall breaker here on this team. Tinkaton, fantastic utility. Milo, Donovan, Abomasnow providing good defensive and a little bit of utility with things like Aurora Veil. Rotom, kind of a weird put on this team, I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm guessing it was just there for Volt Switch momentum and maybe having some special offense in this team, which it really lacked, in my opinion. And Noctowl's a Noctowl, so yeah. So really look at this team. I think what maybe pushed it a little bit more for me on why I think I liked it over Steel City's team was the fact that the wall breaking on this team is insanely great. From Zolrude to Dio, which can be a decent enough wall breaker, also a setup sweeper, but also Cornerstone and Sneezer, just insanely great. The utility from Tinkaton, such as Thunder Wave, Stealth Rock, is fantastically good as well here. Dom and Milo performing a good physically and special defensive duo as well. Abomasnows of War Veil is for great aspect. The Now let's kind of talk about why this team was ranked as low as it was. There's kind of nothing here. Like here, let me talk about this, right? Dio and Fury, along with Rotom, are your only best special attackers on this team. Noctowl has its moments, and Milotic can be a good special attacker. It's better as a bulky Pokemon, in my opinion. And Dio, like I said, is a really good special attacker if it is more kind of setup. Specs is not terrible, but setup kind of helps it better, in my opinion. The hazards on this team, like I've stated, there are three stealth rockers, which I think is relatively good. I do think you can run rocks on either Tinkaton or Dogpan most weeks, which takes the pressure off of Dio. And spikes being Dio and Ogerpon, which both can relatively run spikes as a fourth move if they need it, if they only need three other moves. Now, where this team kind of really lacks here is it only has a spinner in Donphan, which is one of the three best spinners in the format, which is fine. But the thing about this team as well is you're really relying on Zaru as your main Terra captain. Not to say Rotom can't be decent with Terra. Obviously, with Levitate, you can run a couple of abilities such as Terra Electric, Terra Steel, Terra Fire, Terra Rock. You're going to be that type of guy. But I just don't know. Rotom just seems like an odd fit on this draft. Same with Noctowl. I feel like he just had the points. I think we should have just gone with maybe something that was a 6 that could have went to 7 with Terra maybe, or just a really good 6 point Pokemon, in my opinion. But at the same time, we're kind of having to be forced to go with 10 Pokemon here, so we're kind of having to struggle to go one here. So it's interesting, but I don't know. I think we could have just gotten better value in our last two picks, but maybe Davion saw something in these two that he thinks he could. I do think the wall breaking's great. I do think some of the good mons on here are fantastic. I don't know. This team just has this weird role of its defense and offense not aligning too well with its utility. And again, just not enough. Also, I think a kind of a problem we have here is a little bit of the pivoting here. There's not a ton of pivoting on this draft. There's a decent amount of it, but it's probably not enough. I think would be good. So overall, I do think Davion's team is relatively great. And the Terra's Rude, as someone that's currently using Terra's Root, I can see how well this Pokemon is so broken. I love it. So really going to be interesting to see how Davion does this season. Now, these last two teams that had 8.5 scores, it really was hard because they are two of my best friends from the Discord server that Brendan has and my one friend's own personal server. I'm going to spoil it. It's Lamar and Brendan. They are number 8 and number 9. Now, I would have loved to obviously have, cheesed the system and ranked them higher, but I had to be fair. I had to be partial on this, even though I kind of helped Brendan draft. But that's beside the point. I really had to be torn on which one I think I liked more in terms of what the team offered, in terms of what they would do matchup wise. And this was insanely close. Very, very, very close for me. But by just a smidge hair, this team fell just that small bit below the other. So for me, number 9 on my ranking is sadly going to have to be Brendan and the Vegas Golden Corviknight. So let's talk about Brendan's team. Now, I joined Brendan's front office after his second round pick. So just note that right quick before anyone else says I helped him get what he get. He has Iron Valiant, Terra Necrozma, Corviknight, Roaring Moon, Arcanine with Terra, Serena, Hisuian Zoroark, Lantern, Weezing, Articuno, and Terra Golem. So real quick, first two Pokemon, bangers, perfect synergy, perfect 2-1-2 punch in my opinion. Which I think Brendan had like the fourth pick in the draft, which I think getting this in the fourth pick with two picks back to back is insanely good. Not gonna lie to you, really good. I think the Corviknight is a fraud this gen, but it's obviously the mascot pick. Plus, it's a mon that I do think fits really well into the team, especially since this is one of the best Valiant counters in the game, Corviknight. Rory Moon, where I don't give a fuck what people say. This thing is not mid. This thing is very, very good. It's good. And I have stated this hot take. I think it's better without Terra. With Terra, I understand why it is one of the most broken Terra captains and why it's banned from being Terra, but I don't care. I think I have made this thing kill leader in 2 leagues. 2 leagues without Terra, and that's just go to show you. Now, be granted, some people will be like, "Oh, you played against some newbies. Oh, you played against people that don't know how to play this Pokemon." Listen, you can use those excuses all you want. At the end of the day, it's still got the kill meter, which all that matters. So Rory Moon is not mid. It's fantastic. Terra Arcanine, I do think is an interesting thing here. I do think it's going to be a unique mon that we're going to see be used here. I don't remember if I pushed Brendan to want to try Terra Arcanine. I think it was some other idea. But Brendan actually wanted Terra Jolteon, which I was all for. But then some people were convincing him not to go Terra Jolteon. And to those that know who you are, it's obviously it was Fred's decisions. I don't care, but still. My boy! And Serena, really good rapid spinner to pair with Corviknight's default, which I think is really, really good. I think Brandon's Hazard removal was really good right here. I think it really matches up really here. Hisuian Zoroark, I think he's going to be one of the best trickster mons we have all season. And I wouldn't be surprised if we brought this Pokemon every single damn week just to mess with people's heads. It's gonna be really, really funny. Lantern, a decent budget water slash electric for a lot of teams out there, which is really good. Having two immunity, which can be really clutch for us in certain matchups. Wheezing is the Brendan tried and true staple. I kid you not, Brendan has made this Pokemon and Lapras be like the best two Pokemon he's ever drafted in the entirety of his draft league career. I wish I was kidding, but it's actually the truth. Sadly, he did not get Lapras, which I felt like he should have. It should have been more fitting that way. Articuno, kind of just a random pick here. I'm not gonna lie, but would spit out. I think we originally were trying to go for Terra Articuno, but unfortunately we could not get that. And then we have Terra Golem at one point, which Lamar convinced Brendan to go get, which I think was actually pretty funny. And I actually do like the value out of 1 point for that. So, what made this team slightly weaker than Lamar's, in my opinion, is that I'm not gonna lie to you, we have some picks on here that just don't seem like they fit. Like Articuno Golem, they don't seem to mesh really well. I understand why Brendan loves the round one pick, the 1 point Golem with I'm not gonna say why because there's a certain person here that has a Pokemon that we have on there that I'm not gonna say. But I'm not gonna lie, I wish Brendan would have went more with what he originally was going for versus these changes. Like I don't necessarily hate Lantern and I don't hate Wheezing. The problem with Wheezing is that there are gonna be some weeks we are gonna be relying on neutralizing gas, which is not a terrible ability, but it also means like Wheezing now is weak to ground. Now, I do think we have decent checks to ground with obviously Corviknight and then Serena. And then obviously Arcanine can become a Terra Grass if you don't want to run Terra on your Prosmo, which can be fair. I do think there's some options for Terra normal speed sets and also defensive Terra Grass sets. Hopefully, Brendan does remember that this is not VGC, so Terra Grass is not a good VGC set. So hopefully he remembers that. Again, I just think we kind of mesh here. I do think we have more of a defensive backbone than an offensive presence in this game. Like, don't get me wrong, Serena can be offensive, Arcanine can be offensive, but I think our main offensive breakers are being Iron Valiant, Roy Moon, and even Zoroark to an extent. I do think we do have some merit to where this team really functions really well. And again, the main thing about Brendan's draft that I think, and this is why he should have really went with his guns on this, but spikes. I think if you look at spikes onto Brendan's team, this team is a massive threat, and this would have easily jumped to me a 9, and would have had a battle, and would have had 7 people fighting for the ninth, with having the second to seventh slot or even 8 slot to the point with having all these freaking 9 out of 10 teams. If we got spikes for Brendan's draft, I think Brendan's team would have been great because Revenge Killing with Arcanine would have been great. Scarf Endgame with Roy Moon would have been great. Specs Iron Valley with even then they're going with backing wave. Setup Necrozma it could have been really good. Like there was a lot of ways we could have went if we got spikes. I do think in the coming weeks we should maybe talk about that to Brendan about getting spikes. But for right now, as the team sits, I do like Brendan's team. I was actually glad to help him get some stuff that I think would really work for his team. And I'm really hoping I can help bring Brendan a win this season and hopefully to bring him a championship because I would really feel happy if I could help my friend out. But I love Brendan, but I think overall this team, not the greatest, but like I said, there's no bad team in this league. And overall, it's a really good team. I really wish I could have ranked it higher, but I have some valid criticism for why it's not higher. Which then means our next team, sitting at number 8, is going to be Lamar and his Tennessee game against the Titans. Lamar's team is Terra King Gambit, Latios, Alomola, Clodzire, Talonflame, Conkeldurr, Soon Electro, Cleavor, Enamorous Incarnate, and Dunsparce. Right at the get go, first 4 picks, banger, perfect synergy of some source of here. And this is a scary way to look at it. First off, Terra King Gambit, I don't care what anyone says, it's fucking broken. If you don't think it's that is broken, you're dead wrong. Look at some of the results you're seeing from it. It is a fantastic Pokemon. Love this thing. Latios obviously getting some more flip turns, so now fast momentum, which is really great. Paired with another flip turn in Alomola. The Hazard Bot in Clodsire. Talonflame, which has good utility options, optional option things like Tailwind as well. Conkeldurr, a very good Pokemon, a really good status absorber to really fear potentially Guts proccing here. Another solitaire captain in Electro definitely can be a very good mon here with just going dual stab plus then having the Terra Coupler option. Cleavor, fantastic Pokemon. You don't really need a rocks at all. You can just spam rocks with this guy. Enamorous is on Fraud Watch. We'll see how Lamar does with Enam this season. And then a Dunsparce, which has had the light of value being seen from across the board. And Dunsparce is kind of low key all right. It's just not crazy. What I love about Lamar's team is obviously Terra King Gambit. I love King Gambit. The fact that you can just be so many types in so many weeks. And just, you never know when you're running Sucker Punch or not for a lot of teams. You don't know when you're going to be Defiant. Now, obviously, Supreme Overlord is the more common ability that you're going to see more times. But you still have to respect that Defiant ability in the builder every single week, which I think is so good for Lamar to post. I do think the fact that Clodsire is one of the best hazard setters in the entire format of Gen 9. I think when you pair with an Alomola, it's disgusting. Conk and Cleavor, I love its good physical wall breakers to pair with King Gambit, which is really good. I think also having Hisuian Electrode and Enamorous, which compares good special wall breakers with Latios, but Enamorous also being a really good mixed attacker because of the contrary ability with superpower, I think is really great. So really good there. The only thing that falls off from the end of this team is that the defensive backbone is pretty much reliant on Aloe and Clawzar, which I think a lot of people probably say that's fine. It's not the end of the world. It kind of is end of the world when it's kind of bad. Like it's not a really great thing. Talonflame is your only form of removal in this team with Defog, which I think is kind of bad. I do think Lamar's hazard setters are also really lackluster. Obviously, Cleavor can set up rocks by just clicking it. And also, I know people are gonna say, but Cleavor gives defog. You can't say defog is bad. It's bad. You're never going to defog with Cleavor. The main hazard setter on this team is going to be Clodsire. Obviously, Clodsire doesn't have to worry about Stealth Rocks in most weeks, which I think is really good. So I do think there's a lot of opening up for Clodsire to be able to run stuff like Spikes Recover, then like dual stabs or Spikes Recover and T Spikes in some weeks, potentially. I just think your hazards try excuse me, your hazards primarily being on mostly just one Pokemon is a little bit of a kind of a cringe thing, especially when you're having to really rely on a Clodsire, which kind of gets taunted very easily. But it's just going to be one of these teams that I think is really good because I think it balances its physical offense and its bulk relatively well. I just don't see where all of it lines up. The only reason I think I ranked this team slightly better than Brendan's was because I think in terms of how you kind of conflict its offense and defenses, its utility and stuff like that, I think it does better for Brendan's team because Brendan has a few bonds that, let's be honest, we're not going to really be seen. Whereas Lamar legitimately can bring just any six of the like 10 Pokemon he's drafted. Dunsparce does have enough Mermatic to actually be a good Pokemon for Lamar to have in this week on most of his teams, and just overall fits really well. Again, it's just barely better than Brendan's, but I think Lamar drafted a really solid team here. I just think he needs a more of a defensive backbone to pair with Alola and Cloudzair. Like just maybe one more piece, like kind of substitute in here or something like that. that's not Dunsparce. But overall, I do think Lamar seemed really, really great. I just wish his removal was a little bit better because Talonflame, let's be honest, it ain't it. It's not it. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is all of the 8.5 out of 10 teams. Now, we have the 9 out of 10 teams that I had to take freaking forever to do and figure out exactly which one I really wanted to do that was best, horrible, and stuff like that. So, really went into the wells here of figuring out what I thought was the better teams here, going a lot back and forth here. And I'm going to tell you right now, we pretty much have gotten this bottom row mostly done. I'm just going to be honest with you right here, except for this guy. But coming in number 7, roughly around the midpoint of the power rankings, along with number 6 was JB in the Atlantic Victinis. Jay's team is Meowscarada, Terrapagos, Iron Moth, Landorus, Therian, Scream Terror, Terra Empoleon, Terra Kilmo, Vikavolt, Terra Haunter, and Claw. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I look at this team, I definitely see Jay. I can see Jay's draft literally clear as day. And I think this is 100% his style, his type of build, and I think it's gonna be really one of the best things about this draft for Jay. I love Meowscarada. I think that was his round one pick. Going as a round one pick, I think he was in like the top 5. I do think it was a random pick, in my opinion, but I can see the great value that from Meowscarada because Meowscarada obviously gives you spikes, gives you one of the best kind of like utility Pokemon. Not really to one of the best pivots, but also a really good Mon with us. The knockoff, triple axle, flower trick. That's literally all you need. Then you throw spikes on there. Terrapagos, obviously we all know what Terrapagos can do. It's almost like a Mew Swiss Army knife with utility. Iron Moth, I don't care what you say, Jason. Iron Moth is goaded. It is a great Pokemon. Really excited for Jay to use it. Lando T, a Mon that's definitely fallen off race, but it's still relatively good. I really would have liked it as a Terra Captain, honestly, in this format, which I think would have been a lot better for Jay. But we'll have to see how he does without it. Screamtail, as much as I hate this Pokemon, I think it's a stupid bond. Has great defensive viability. Wish support is fantastic, really good. One of the best fairies this gen for sure. Terra Empoleon, I'm actually kind of interested to see what Jay's going to pull off of this. I think it's the most intriguing Terra Captain we've had so far, besides Gudra, which I think is going to be really interesting. Terra Komao, which Clangor's Soul is allowed, which obviously was a no-brainer right there. Vikavolt for Sea Web's Haunter, which seems some great value. And that's just for a 1 point Terra Captain. I think that's kind of a low-key steal, which I think is really great from him there. And then there's Claw. So let's talk about this team. I like the fact there are multiple plethora of stealth rockers. So we can have a reliable rocker every single week, and the rest can just do what they want, which I really, really like. I don't like Meow as a spike setter. Now Keegan's gonna be like, "What are you talking about, man? It's one of the best spike stackers in here." Also, did you know that Excalibur's better than Garchomp? Yeah, Keegan, we're never letting you leave that comment down, by the way. We're never letting you leave that comment down. Anyways, I know Keegan's probably not watching this video, but anyways, Keegan shout out by the way. Keegan Shadow is what I said. Hopefully, it sounded like the way I said. But anyways, Meow. I don't think it's a good spike setter. Can it be good? Yes. Is it decently enough to have a fourth move where you really just need your dual stab plus triple axle? Yes. But overall, I don't like spikes on Meow. I don't think spikes is a really good reliable move for Meow on this most sets. And I just don't really like it. I just don't really like it on that. I like Meow more better. It's just a good Pokemon that can just click buttons into most teams. Terrapagos as your only form of removal is where I get little hazy about this. It was mostly just these first two that kind of caused the conflict for me a little bit here, mostly because Terrapagos can't fit Rock Polish if you're running Rapid Spin, in my opinion. That literally makes no sense for that. You're literally running Rapid Spin, your normal stab, and then either Calm Mind coverage or two other coverage moves, and you're just trying to click buttons into a team. I just generally think Rapid Spin on Terrapagos being your only way to remove hazards is not good because again you're almost forced on boots on this Pokemon every damn league you play with because you just need to be sure those that Terra Shell stays intact. Overall, I don't think Jay's team is really bad. I think the only thing about this team that it's a little concerning to me is this team has this weird kind of more defensive vibe than it does offensive, if it makes sense. I think, you're not really going to tear the Empoleon all that much in some leagues. I think you're tearing your Kamalo. I also think trying to get the idea of the Clanger soul off more, which I think is more important, is really good here. There's some good aspects for that, but I don't know, just something about this team is just it feels off-putting in some way, but I would love the pivoting. There's a good amount of pivoting here. I do like how we can be a little versatile with how our sets and teams can be in most weeks. Again, I just don't know why. There's just something that feels off-putting somehow, and I just can't put my finger on what it exactly is. But overall, I love Jay's team. Definitely looks like a team that I would draft besides Streamtail. Streamtail sucks. I don't care what anyone says. Streamtail is garbage. Now that I've gotten that, and now the comment section is going to go after me, I've got the algorithm now on my side. Let's talk about the next team. So that is our seventh team. Now we're going to talk about our sixth place team that I put in the rankings. And we're back to the bottom half of the board because it is Gert Bilbo's team in the old English Ice Cubes. He has got Dragapult Terra Okie Dokie, which I'll say it for the IBL fans that complained about it. 3-point steal Terra Doki? What? There you go. That's for you fans out there. Terraclight scored Chi-Yu, Sylveon, Raikou, Fortress, Shaman, Manaphy, and Terra Braviary. Now, this team, I thought it did a lot of things right here for the most part. I think obviously Dragon Ball, which is a fraud. That thing sucks. I'd rather take Terra Okidoki than that first round. I'll say it. I'll publicly admit it. I don't like Dragon Ball. It's garbage. Now I'm even more algorithm food for me. You guys didn't see it, but I had a thumbs up and smiled. I'm having too much fun with my video now. It might be because I'm getting sleep deprived at this point. We've been up for about 2 hours now for doing this, so let's try to get this done. Okie dokie, I actually do think is a really solid Terra Captain. It can get rid of the poison fighting typing is really good. It's a fantastic assault vest user, great bulk up setup for it, which is really great. Terra Gliscor has been making waves from a defensive standpoint, and I actually like the fact he grabbed a really good offensive and defensive back-to-back Terra type Pokemon because I felt like that was to get really good value out of your Pokemon in the first couple of rounds here, which I think is fantastic. I love Terraglyce I really do want to try Terraglyce as well. I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with Terraglyce from a defensive but also offensive standpoint. So I'm really excited for my chances to try it in the future. Excuse me. Chi-Yu, a fantastic special wall breaker. Actually, kind of a surprise to see in the fourth round, but not too surprised there. Sylveon, which I've seen Kurt use before, especially against me, is an annoying special wall, but it's a really good Pokemon. Raikou, he's ass. Fortress, obviously the Swiss Army knife utility with your moves of choice there. Also as a rep spinner. Shaman and Manaphy, the Pixie Buddies, which I actually have in the NBA, which you guys have seen probably most likely. And for the newer people, I'm in a Showdown Gen 6 League, which I have in Manaphy, Victini, and Shaman all in my squad, which is pretty funny to see this happen again. And then Terra Braviary, I think is kind of cool. I don't think it's really that great, but it's a cool Pokemon to see, and it's really unique. So, where I think Gert's team fell a little bit lower compared to the other four teams of the 9 out of 10 rankings, I just felt like I don't know. I think Fortress is your only rapid spinner, along with Braviary as your defogger. Kind of trash. Because here's the thing: if Braviary is not being your Terra Captain, it's not running defog. So there's that. If it is your Terra Captain, if it's not your Terra Captain, it's not even that reliably good of a mon to bring with defog, in my opinion. Fortress is not a horrible spinner, but it's not a great spinner at all because it likes to spam hazards more than want to run rapid spin. Like you're not gonna run just hazards, spin, and that's it. Excuse me. Now, what I do like about Gert's team here, though, is Gliscor Fortress can really relieve the pressure off each other. Like, one can run rocks, one runs spikes, and then, like, Fortress can then run T spikes, or Gliscor can run T spikes, and again, run that coverage cycle, which I think is really great in terms of its hazards. So, overall, I do like how Gliscor and Fortress balance off each other perfectly well. Really like that. This team kind of lacks a little bit of some wall breaking power for me personally speaking. Like Okidoki's a decently good physical wall breaker, but does need a little bit of setup to kind of get it going. Pult just sucks. Chiyu can just wall break perfectly fine. Raikou kind of needs to set up and go because Raikou sucks this gen. He's ass, which makes me sad. Shaman is kind of more of utility slash if it's offensive, it's gonna have a boosted item. Manaphy kind of needs set up to get itself going, but it's also really good defensive water. But it can reliably set up Tailwind most times out of anything. It can just be a massive dude. I think just compared to the other four teams, I think this like just didn't. It kind of lacked a little bit more than what I saw more in the other teams than I saw in Gert's team. But Gert's team is fantastic. It's really, really great, and I do think it's got a lot of promise here. I would love to be proven wrong, and more importantly, I want to see what you can make me. Can you make me a believer of Dragapult? Who knows? But overall, I think Gertz seems fantastic. But in my opinion, it's just it's just falling a little bit lower to where I hold the other teams to. Now we get into the top five, and these next four were not as hard. It mostly came down to who number two and number three were. That's what we'll talk about, and we'll get that in a second here. But these next two, actually, I think either flip flop or they were the same score based on how I looked at it, and I had to just kind of compare them, and I felt like if these guys were to face, which I don't know if they do or not, really, because I didn't pay attention, who would I think would have the benefit of the matchup? And I think just by a tiny, ever so tiny gap, I think I had to give it to this guy over that. So coming in at number five is going to be Shadow Gallade and the Carolina Taurus Heels. Shadow's team is Terra, Urshifu, Rapid, Latias, Cinderace, Petron, Hippowdon, Terra Yamega, Excadrill, Trapinch, Umbreon, Glaceon, Eevee, and Reuniclus, Eevee with Terra. Yes, he did break species clause, but guess what? No one gives a damn. But Terra Urshifu, I have never really played against Terra Urshifu. I've only played it twice, being both Rapid Strike and Single Strike. Single Strike, I think I should have beaten last time I played it, but it's the past. And Rapid Strike I've beaten before, and it's nothing crazy, but it's definitely unique. Obviously, boot Terra water sets are very threatening, which is really scary in most weeks. With some really good defensive typings that can be really good to help set up and just kind of one house. Latias is a fantastic Pokemon with Thunder Wave support. Also, with Healing Wish support is really great. Cinderace being able to send Court Change, also taunting because kind of pivoting things out with also like weaknesses of its utility such as Super Fang. Petron's a physically defensive monster, which can be just walling just about everything. The sand between Hippowdon and Drill, which he grabbed the right sand setter, by the way. I don't care what you people say. Hippowdon is the best sand setter in this entirety of sand setters. I don't care. But I love the combo of like I like the mode that Shadow has with Sand, and he didn't go really heavy with that mode, which I actually really like. Like he went with some options for it, but he didn't go crazy with it, which I really like. Because he can go either smooth rock or non-smooth rock variants, most likely, which is really great. And Hippowdon is actually a Pokemon that can be brought by itself without Drill, which I think is really great here. Trapinch, good value for the one pointer. Umbreon is trash, but it's got some decent viability. Glaceon, I know, is becoming one of Shadow's probably top three, if not top five favorite Pokemon to draft nowadays. Reuniclus is a fan favorite of mine. I've actually never seen Shadow use Reuniclus either, so it's really interesting to see how it is. And then the tried and true baby Eevee, the baby version of myself, which Shadow is still undecided on what this is going to evolve into, which involves my other form, which hopefully means it's a good evolution, so I can be kind of cool with it. So overall, with Shadow's team, I really didn't hate anything about Shadow's draft. I think there was a lot of great things about it. There's fantastic momentum options on this team. There's some really good, reliable bulk that pairs well. Like Petrol plus Umbreon is disgusting, dude. You have the best physical and one of the best special balls in the entire game, which is disgusting. I think some of the offense on this team is really good between these Cinderace, the Rapid Strike, they have Extra Drill, the special wall breaking from even Glaceon, which does have that special wall break options to it, and the Latias to an extent as well. And Mega, I think is really good. The thing that I think hold this draft back a little bit from me was I do see a problem with Shadow's removal because Drill doesn't really want to run spin a lot of weeks. I also think the fact that Cinderace's core change is going to be situational type of thing. The big thing about this draft that actually really did kind of hinder this from being like a 9.5 and being really up there in like the top three was no spikes. I think the fact that this team quite literally has no hazards besides three stealth rockers is pretty bad. I think the fact that we don't have anything else to take advantage for things like Urshifu to chip down and we would win, or for like an offensive Latios to win, Cinderace to win, etc., etc., etc. I think Spikes makes this team like an easy 9.5, almost to a 10. I wouldn't say right at 10, but damn near close to a 10. I think spikes go a long way because again, that hazard chip, and for things like Cinderace, Trill, even things like Glaceon, Urshifu, Latias, like I think it goes a long way in a match, especially when you are forcing Rapid Spin block from the Petricorn, you're forcing a default block from really nothing actually. So, just overall, a really solid team. I think what kind of fell this one below the team that we were going to talk about next was that I feel like there can be some holes and some ways to go around this team, which obviously for every team out there, there can be a thing for that. But I think specifically with this next team we talk about, I think there's some cool strategies to go around this team. But overall, Shadows team, I absolutely love it. This definitely looks like a draft I would personally want to use because it has some of my favorites on there. But overall, solid team from Shadow, and I think he's got a really good chance of making it almost a back to back. And again, I don't remember if he defended his IBL title or not, but if he hasn't, he's got a good chance to retain it and become a two-time IBL champion. Coming in right after Shadow, just barely, like I said, is going to be Mario B in his Montebello Mexica. I want to call it Mexicas because it makes more sense, but I'll just call it what the name is. But Mario seen his Terra Raging Bull, Rillaboom, Glimmora, Annihilate, Weavile, Blastoise, Carping, Bronzong, Landorus, and Onkolone. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this team is kind of interesting. Now, you say it interesting in a very good kind of way, because I do think the fact that, for one, we have three reliable Stealth Rockers, which I think is really, really good. We're gonna ignore Landorus because he's not letting Stealth Rocks. He's a sheer force Pokemon. Let's just get that out of the way. I think the fact that we have three reliable rockers is really good. I think we can fit a lot of weeks. There is now also two reliable spike users on this team, which I also think is relatively good about it as well. Now, I think there's a lot of cool pieces. I think we forced Rapid Spin defog a lot with this type of draft, which I think is really good because it takes advantage of things like Annihilate, which is really good. We have a really solid option of a spinner in Blastoise, and I do like the option of spin with Mortal Spin from Glimmora, which it can be just a primary option, but spin on Blastoise is reliable enough, but the option of having it is a really good backup points to it, which again, if Glimmora is your only removal, it's not removal. It's trash removal. And again, Terra Raging Bolt, fantastic Pokemon. Breaks through a lot of things. It could be a lot of cool absence of it. Annihilate is a fantastic Pokemon. Weevil's a fantastic breaker. Landorus Sheer Force can be one of the best explosive wall breakers in the entire game. Where this kind of fell out of my top three, personally speaking, is that I'm not going to lie to you, Rillaboom feels weirdly placed on this team. And here's why I think it does. Because you're going to Terra Raging Bolt, you're not going to be weak to grounding. Because more than likely, you're never tearing into steel unless you think there's a matchup for steel or fire for some reason. And then you can take advantage of potentially the terrain in some fashion. Clamora is going to die to any ground move still. It doesn't live any damn hits. Carving kind of takes advantage, and I could see where you can run Heat Proof with Bronzong if you're taking advantage of grassy terrain to move from down ground type moves potentially. But again, Uncle Oni, don't understand the reason for the pick. If it's supposed to be ghost resist, they like what do you have? Because right now it kind of gets fucked by ghost types. Like Weavile has not a good ghost switching on this team, which really pushed it back for me on terms of the ghost switchings here. Now, obviously, there's some teams that are massively weak to ghost. Like also, if we look at Shadow, he gets absolutely floored by a ghost type. But Umbreon's enough of an answer to handle ghost types for him that having the normal type doesn't really matter. Like I said, Rillaboom kind of feels a little bit placed here, but I do see some aspect of Rillaboom. I can see some grassy seed sets a lot on some Pokemon here to take advantage of that. Not for Unburden, but just for having a defensive viability to potentially set up and win. So I do like that option there. I do wish the Carbine was Terra over the Unkaloni because Terra Carbine is low-key broken. And as someone that has used it, and obviously if everyone's seen Jay Ricky used it, this mod never dies. It just sits, it sets up, it body presses you, and it kind of just six outs your life. It is a fantastic lower tier Terra Captain. I do think it's a better pick over the Uncle in my opinion, but obviously it's Mario's decision. But again, that's another big thing I think gonna hinder the straps as well. I think the Terra would have been better on Carbink, and if we could have maybe found some way to get another Terra Captain on, we could have. But if we couldn't, then I think Terra Carbink was your better bet. But overall, I do like Mario's team. I think it needs a little bit more of a special side on this thing because Raging Bull, Blastoise, and Landers, your main special attackers. Obviously, Landers can be primarily more of a physical attacker because of with international jump, but sheer force is a lot more boosted on Landers. But again, I just feel like this team has something that's missing. It's not really balancing itself out. But I love the idea of some pieces that you can take advantage of, especially with mons that maybe don't make sense in the team. But overall, a very solid team nonetheless. Now we get to the top three, and besides the number one coach, because his team was like literally the only team that I kind of knew was like the best team, and it's already been kind of decided from the other coaches that he did have the number one team. This number two and number three slot was insanely difficult to really pick who I liked more on this one, and this was really tough. Like this was like a point 0.5, like each team are 9-9. If I had to give like a point 0.5 or like a point 0.1 essentially to break this tie, this was really close for me in terms of who I wanted to pick. And I don't know, man. I first thought his team was a top five team, and after I compared it to some other teams, unfortunately, and this is gonna boost his ego, which he loves to do, I am going to give it to Colin of the San Antonio Spurs as number three. And he was very close to being number two. Very close to number two, but I'll explain why I didn't like his team more than whoever number two was. So Colin's team is Garchomp, Goldengo, Darkrai, Ogerpon, Teal, Primarina, which Quintero, by the way, is the Ogerpon, Mesprit, Regieleki, which he says he never really wants to bring except for maybe one match, which I don't know why he would publicly admit that. Terra Ente, which I'm excited to see. Komala with Terra and Spinops. Now, looking at Collins' draft, he's got multiple options for different things. He has at least two good reliable stealth rockers, which can easily run rocks either week. He has three reliable spikers, which is really good for his team. He does not have T spikes unless Spite Ups owns T spikes, which I believe it does, which is kind of mid. I do think overall that Colin has some solid team. Like you look at his first four picks, even arguably five picks, it's insanely balanced out perfectly well between its offense and its defense, relatively well. I think it's really good. Terra Ente is going to be a fantastic wall breaker for Colin. I know he's going to be definitely doing his best to get that thing. Probably arguably banned or even priced higher for Terra. Obviously, Orc Teal has been proven to be such a menace with Terra in this gen, which is really good, especially when he gets Defiant once it Terras, which is no, that's fine. He gets Defiant beforehand, and then he gets that speed raise every single time it's swapped in, which is broken, mind you. Just really good mons and a good option for some decent defensive back piece, like defensive Chomp's definitely a viable option. Primarina Mesper is a good defensive role piece there as well. I think what kind of settled this though for me on why I don't think Collins draft matched up to whoever number two was that in my opinion, Collins draft lacks good removal. And I hear let me talk now, let me tell you about this. He has two D spinners, and let me tell you right now, both those spinners are ass. They're not going to be coming a lot of the weeks, and if they're going to be that desperate to be brought, it's either going to be Screens Regieleki with Spin and Explosion, or it's going to be Spin Komala and pray to God you live hits with AV. That's really just about it. That's the only way I see Colin bringing these Pokemon. If it's really anything. Otherwise, I actually see America where he can definitely bring Spite Ups quite a lot if he definitely wants to take advantage of some teams that don't have the most reliant has removal option and definitely to take advantage of. But also, again, like I said, the offense of this team is just fantastic. I think you cannot go wrong with much of the offense. I wish his team can have a little bit of a better defensive piece because Primarina and Mesper are his main defensive pieces. Obviously, Garchomp can be a defensive liability, but I feel like that takes away some of the offensive utility that Garchomp does provide. But overall, I do think Colin's team, as much as I don't want to feed his ego, he has a very solid team, and he stated himself that he has a top three team. I think he probably put himself as number one or as a number two, probably, but he's not number two in my book. But he is a number three, and I will give the props to Colin. He was right. He does have a top three team, so I will give him the credit that he deserved, since that is what he assumed his team was going to be. So now we get into number two, and this was the best team of the 9 out of 10 teams. And this was, again, like I said, it was very difficult to put this one on a roll. I'm going to explain why I ranked this so high. So coming in at number two is, of course, the commissioner, which I promise he did not slip me $20. or $1 million or whatever to make him high ranked on here. I genuinely think Rose's team of the Las Vegas Rotoms is really good. He has Spectre, Terra, Ogerpon, Wellspring, Team Loose, Scizor, Vezidivity, Buxie, Tauros Blaze, Kilowattle, Pseudo Wadoo, and Toad's Cruel. Terra being the Wellspring and the Kilowattle. Now, I think his two Terra captains, perfect choices. Love those choices. Kilowattle is insanely broken with Terra, as we've seen from Uni the Bus, and also from my personal usage of it, is a fantastic Terra captain. Wellspring has been making ground waves as one of the most broken Terra captains in the format as a super strong wall breaker and just really annoying to deal with in most times. Spectre, which has been kind of on fraud watch for a lot of people. I think Spectre is good. I'm really excited to see how Rose does. I think Rose built some really good pieces around it, especially that Ting Lu, which was the best answer to this Pokemon in the game. So I think the fact that we got Ting Lu is insanely great. Especially that Ting Lu also gives you a second Spiker, which gives you reliable Stealth Rocker. Scizor is really good, decent split steel type for those fairy types. It's also a decent defogger for the team, and it's also a really fantastic wall breaker with choice bands, SD variants, which is really great. Vezidip and Uxie perform really good U-turn pivoting along with Scizor and also Vezidip being able to just toxic just about any damn thing it wants and just being a fat, annoying little pheasant bird thingy bobber. Uxie's got fantastic utility in things like Thunder Wave Beyond, a second stealth rocker for the team, which is really reliable. Toro Blaze, probably really meant to be probably a setup and break or just be a fantastic breaker for the team. Obviously, having a move that does break through screens is relatively nice as well. Kilowattle, again, a great special wall breaker, good speed tier as well. Pseudo do, he's just a funny guy that likes to dance. And Toadscroll, which gives us more spikes, more stealth rocks, but now T spikes, which is really good. And he gives us that reliable option to spin. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Rose's removal is Scizor and Toadscroll. Toadscroll is not coming in a lot, and Scizor does not want to run default a lot. Unless we're not going to run hazards. So removal is going to be questionable at best to what we do here, but overall is really, really good. I think some of the defensive synergy between Ting Lu, Fezzidibi, Uxie is insanely disgusting. It's really annoying. The offensive wall breaking from Ogerpon, Scizor, and Tauros is really great. The special offensive side of things, being Spectre and Kilowattle, is a little bit concerning because I don't think we need to have just two special attackers, but they are the most reliable special attackers that Rose does have on his team. And like I said, I really don't hate anything about Rose's team here. I do think that the fact that we have a useless Sudowoodo is kind of bad. Also, Fezidipity is ass. I don't like it. Um, but I do think removing the hazards is going to be the problem we have here because as much as we want to set up hazards, we can't move hazards pretty much. So I do think it's gonna be a little bit of a problem there. Also, we don't have insane. We have some good speed. Don't get me wrong, but also I just think I feel like our bulk is taken advantage of relatively easily, and I do think we have some sleeper options of what we could do, like physical take and stuff like that. Excuse me. But I do think overall Rose's team is pretty solid. And again, I think it's personally better than Colin's team. Colin's going to disagree with that, but I don't care what Colin says. But I think Rose's team is really, really solid. I don't find too many issues with it. The main issue is just going to be trying to keep hazards up on his opponent's side of the field if he's not bringing spin. So it's going to be one of those things there. But overall, solid team nonetheless, and I really love it. Which means our number one coach for the power rankings, which again drafted by his fiance but fixed up by him in race. So the dynamic duo with their dynamic duo puppers, which there are cute puppers. Sorry, shout out to the puppers. We have Jack Doe, aka Gravy, of the Vancouver Titans. And Jack's team, again, is Great Tusker, Ninja, Metagross, Rotom, Wash, Terra Danzy, Simicha, Terra Salmon, Swallow, Ursaring, Macargo with Terra. I'm not gonna lie to you, the first like within these first four picks, three of them remind me of Ellie because Ellie has drafted those three Pokemon. Even though I don't think she's drafted Draytos, I think it's like a combination of like Jack and Ellie's first four. It's like that together, which is kind of cute. I think obviously it's your only removal option, but Tusk can reliably spin on most about everything, which is fine. Greninja being along the Spike Stacker with having the answers of Spike Stacker is really good because then we can kind of find some room for Greninja to be more off breaker and having hazards, I think is really great. Metagross, a fantastic steel type in this format, and also a really good reliable stealth rocker, so that takes away the stealth rock pressure from Deancey and Great Tusk. To an extent, Rotom Wash, a fantastic pivot, one of the best bulky waters in the game. DNC, if you're not using Terra for defensively or offensive, it's got some good usage from its Stealth Rock, your defense, spikes, all that niche snatch there. And just overall a fantastic Pokemon. Sinister, I do think with Terra is better, but without Terra, we haven't kind of seen some rounds for Sinister that's been doing insanely well. And Sinister's also just an annoying Pokemon. Another great ground switching for the team, which I think is really great. Terra Salamence, which he got so late in the draft. Well, I guess technically Ellie did, but still, Terra Salamence, so late in the draft, is an insane good steal on that end. Like, this is a mon that gets rid of a quad weakness and just kind of goes in with Moxie or Intimidate. It's just insanely good. Swalot is the only one on this team that I think is ass. I know Rose is a massive Swallow guy, but I don't see the value of Swallow besides being a grounded poison. Which at least having the option for grounded poison is fine, but yeah. Ursaring though I actually like. I like this pickup of Ursaring. It's a really good ghost immunity for the team. But also again it kind of stops that status being a status disorder for a team as as well. And again forces you to get a little careful with your head because you're either dealing with guts or quick feed in most matchups. And then I'm a massive fan of Terra McCargo. I believe in Terra McCargo. Ellie has brought Terra McCargo for several times in the PPL last time she was in it. So I believe in McCargo, Gary. I believe in him. I believe in him. He's my guy. But yeah, with that though, Jack's team, number one in the league. The only thing I maybe saw a slight issue with was again the Swallow being a poison type, and maybe just that really, maybe the McCargo not being the best 1 point value, but I can't still like it. Overall, there was not a lot of things about Jack's team I did not like. I loved everything about Jack's team. And massive shouts to Ellie, who helped Jack draft his team, essentially. So massive shouts to both of them. But overall, that is going to be your IBL power rankings for season 11 here, guys. I have been thankful for you guys to have me a part of your division this season, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Definitely go check out every single coach down in the description, and we'll make sure there is a link to all of their channels down below. And make sure you tune in because starting in March, battles are going live. So with that being said, I will see you guys when these battles go live. And until next time, guys, I'm Thrill Shot. I am Thriller 96. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for having me here, IBL. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.